They threw me a birthday party, then sent me a $93 bill. Welcome back and enjoy the story. The summer breeze swept through Lisa's apartment, carrying with it the scent of anticipation and the gentle hum of life in Chicago. At 25, Lisa Morgan had grown accustomed to quiet birthdays, modest celebrations that matched her bank account, if not her dreams. Standing before her bathroom mirror, she adjusted the collar of her blouse, a thrift store find that somehow looked designer in the right light. Her phone buzzed insistently on the counter, a series of notifications from her best friend Natalie. "Don't make any plans for Saturday," the latest message read. "I've got something special planned for your birthday." Lisa smiled, despite the knot forming in her stomach. Special, in Natalie's vocabulary, often translated to elaborate and undoubtedly expensive. With her teaching assistant stipend barely covering rent and groceries, Lisa had mastered the art of gentle refusal when it came to Natalie's grand schemes. But birthdays were different. They carried an expectation that made saying no feel unnecessarily harsh. She picked up her phone, thumbs hovering over the keyboard. "Nothing too fancy. Okay," she typed, adding a smiling emoji to soften her words. "Just something simple with a few friends would be perfect." 3 dots appeared immediately, followed by Natalie's reply. "Don't worry. Mom's helping me plan. It'll be amazing, I promise. Just be at my place by 7 p.m. The mention of Olivia Parker, Natalie's mother, only intensified Lisa's unease. Olivia was known for her extravagant taste and lavish parties, traits her daughter had inherited wholeheartedly. Unlike Natalie, however, Lisa hadn't grown up with a safety net of family wealth. Her single mother had worked 2 jobs to put her through college, instilling in her a wariness toward unnecessary expenses that no amount of exposure to the Parker lifestyle had managed to erode. "Looking forward to it," Lisa responded, setting her phone down with a sigh. She couldn't help but feel a flicker of excitement beneath her apprehension. It had been months since she'd had a proper celebration, years since she'd felt truly special on her birthday. Perhaps just this once, she could allow herself to be spoiled without worrying about the cost. What Lisa couldn't have known, as she returned to her reflection with a cautious smile, was that this birthday would indeed be memorable, though not for the reasons she might have hoped. The invitation, delivered with such casual warmth, would soon reveal itself as something far more complicated, a gift wrapped in expectations she hadn't agreed to bear. The following days passed in a blur of lesson plans and grading papers, punctuated by cryptic texts from Natalie requesting Lisa's favorite foods and color preferences. By the time Saturday arrived, Lisa had surrendered to curiosity, allowing anticipation to temporarily overshadow her financial anxieties. She chose a navy dress she'd been saving for a special occasion, applied more makeup than her usual minimalist approach, and even splurged on a taxi to Natalie's downtown apartment. The doorman greeted her with unusual familiarity, escorting her to the elevator with a knowing smile. "Floor 18, he said, pressing the button. "I believe they're expecting you, Ms. Morgan." As the elevator ascended, Lisa took a steadying breath. Whatever awaited her, she promised herself she would accept it graciously, savoring the experience without letting thoughts of money taint the evening. After all, friendship wasn't measured in dollars, but in the thoughtfulness behind the gestures. And Natalie, for all her financial obliviousness, had always been undeniably thoughtful. The elevator doors opened to reveal a hallway transformed. Fairy lights twined along the walls, leading to Natalie's apartment door, which bore a handwritten sign proclaiming "Happy Birthday, Lisa," in glittering script. Before she could knock, the door swung open, revealing Natalie's beaming face. "You're here," Natalie exclaimed, pulling Lisa into a tight hug. "And right on time, everyone's waiting." The word "everyone" sent a momentary panic through Lisa, but she had no time to process it before being drawn into the apartment. What awaited her inside would set in motion events that would test not only her friendship with Natalie, but also her understanding of boundaries, expectations, and the true cost of celebration in a world where not everyone shared the same financial reality. The apartment had been transformed. What normally functioned as Natalie's sleek, minimalist living space now resembled something from a luxury event planner's portfolio. Cream and gold balloons cascaded from the ceiling, forming an archway over an elegantly set dining table. Floral arrangements that Lisa recognized from an upscale Chicago florist adorned every surface. A professional photographer circled the room, capturing candid moments as a small crowd of guests turned toward her with expectant smiles. "Surprise!" they chorused, some faces familiar, others barely recognizable from Natalie's broader social circle. Lisa froze, overwhelmed by the spectacle before her. This wasn't the intimate gathering she'd imagined. It was a production, expensive and elaborate, with at least 20 people crowding the space. In the corner, a bartender mixed cocktails at a temporary bar setup. Near the kitchen, what appeared to be catering staff arranged platters of hors d'oeuvres that looked like they belonged in a gourmet magazine. "Are you surprised?" Natalie squealed, gripping Lisa's hands. "Mom and I have been planning this for weeks." As if summoned, Olivia Parker emerged from the kitchen, elegant in a designer dress that probably cost more than Lisa's monthly rent. "Happy birthday, darling," she said, air-kissing Lisa's cheeks. "We wanted to give you a proper celebration. 25 is a milestone after all." Lisa managed to smile, genuine despite her shock. "It's incredible," she said, meaning it. "But it's too much, Natalie. You shouldn't have gone to all this trouble." "Nonsense," Olivia dismissed with a wave of her manicured hand. "Nothing's too much for Natalie's best friend. Now, come meet everyone. The chef has prepared a special menu with all your favorites." Chef. The word echoed in Lisa's mind as she allowed herself to be led through the room, introduced to guests who seemed more like Natalie's social orbit than her own friends. The bartender pressed a champagne flute into her hand. Someone else pinned a birthday sash across her chest. Through it all, Lisa maintained her smile, even as a persistent question formed in the back of her mind. How exactly had Natalie interpreted her request for nothing too fancy? As the evening progressed, Lisa found herself settling into the celebration despite her initial shock. The food was exquisite, the company mostly pleasant, and Natalie's genuine joy at hosting was infectious. By the time the custom-made cake appeared, 3 tiers of vanilla bean and raspberry, Lisa's favorite combination, she had almost forgotten her concerns about the event's obvious expense. "Speech!" someone called as Lisa stood before the cake, its candles casting a warm glow on the faces around her. Lisa hesitated, then raised her glass. "Thank you all for coming," she began, searching for words that would express her gratitude without revealing her discomfort. "And especially thank you, Natalie and Olivia, for this amazing party. I'm overwhelmed by your generosity." She paused, meeting Natalie's eager gaze. "I've never had a birthday quite like this one, and I'll never forget it." The crowd applauded as Lisa blew out her candles, making no wish except perhaps for the evening to continue smoothly. Little did she know that the real surprise of the night was yet to come, one that would arrive not with fanfare, but with the quiet ping of a text message days later. The party continued past midnight, ending only when the last guests, mostly Natalie's friends from her marketing firm, finally departed. Lisa, slightly tipsy from champagne and thoroughly exhausted, helped Natalie and Olivia survey the aftermath of the celebration. "You really shouldn't have gone to such lengths," Lisa said, gathering discarded napkins from the coffee table. "But it was beautiful. Thank you both so much." "You deserve it," Natalie insisted, collecting empty glasses. "Don't worry about cleaning up. The service will handle everything tomorrow." Of course, there was a service. Lisa nodded, suppressing a sigh. Then I should probably head home. It's late, and I have papers to grade tomorrow. Let me call you. A car, Olivia offered, already reaching for her phone. Another expense, Lisa thought, but didn't say. Instead, she hugged both women, expressing her thanks once more before allowing herself to be escorted downstairs to the waiting luxury ride service that Olivia had summoned. As the car navigated the late-night Chicago streets, Lisa leaned her head against the window, watching the city lights blur together. The evening had been magical in many ways, so different from her usual quiet celebrations. Part of her wished she could simply accept such generosity without question, enjoying the kind of lifestyle that Natalie took for granted. But another part, the practical voice of her upbringing, whispered cautions about reciprocity and expectations. "Your friend and her mum must really care about you," the driver commented, meeting her eyes in the rearview mirror. Lisa smiled tiredly. "They do. They're incredibly generous. Those are the best kind of friends to have," he replied, turning. His attention back to the road. Lisa murmured agreement, though uncertainty lingered. In her experience, generosity often came with strings attached, expectations that remained unspoken until suddenly they weren't. But surely Natalie understood her financial situation. Surely this party was simply a gift from friend to friend, with no accounting to follow. The car pulled up to her modest apartment building, a stark contrast to Natalie's luxury high-rise. Lisa thanked the driver and stepped out into the quiet street, the sounds of celebration still ringing in her ears. As she climbed the stairs to her third-floor walk-up, she felt a curious mixture of gratitude and unease, as though something remained unsettled despite the evening's apparent success. She couldn't have known then how prophetic that feeling would prove to be, or that the true cost of her birthday celebration would soon be presented to her in stark, numerical terms. For now, though, she unlocked her door, kicked off her heels with a sigh of relief, and allowed herself to bask in the afterglow of being celebrated, however briefly, like someone who didn't need to check her bank account before every purchase. If you are enjoying the story, type 5 in the comments and subscribe for more videos like this. If not, type 0. It helps me create even better content for you. Continuing, Monday morning arrived with the harsh blare of Lisa's alarm, pulling her from dreams still tinged with fairy lights and champagne bubbles. The school day stretched before her, a schedule packed with tutoring sessions and a department meeting that would likely run over time. She dressed quickly, choosing practical clothes that would transition easily from classroom to her evening shift at the campus library. As she waited for her ancient coffee maker to sputter to life, Lisa scrolled through the photos Natalie had already posted from the party. The images captured a celebration that looked even more extravagant through the lens of professionally edited photography. Lisa laughing beneath the balloon arch, Natalie and her hugging by the cake, groups of well-dressed guests raising glasses in toast. The caption read, "Giving my bestie the 25th she deserves. Birthday queen best friend goals." Lisa couldn't help but smile at Natalie's enthusiasm, even as she wondered about the cost of the photographer alone. She double-tapped to like the post and added a heartfelt comment thanking Natalie again for the wonderful evening. Then, pouring coffee into her travel mug, she rushed out the door, birthday celebrations giving way to the reality of her busy schedule. The day passed in a blur of student questions and faculty politics. By the time Lisa swiped her ID card at the library entrance for her evening shift, she'd almost managed to stop mentally calculating what her birthday party might have cost. Almost, but not quite. The question lingered, less out of curiosity than a vague sense of obligation, a need to understand what she might be expected to reciprocate when Natalie's birthday arrived in the spring. "You look exhausted," commented Derek, her fellow graduate assistant, as Lisa settled behind the circulation desk. "Long weekend?" "Birthday celebration," Lisa explained, suppressing a yawn. My friend Natalie threw me a surprise party. Ah, the famous Natalie? Derek nodded, having heard numerous stories about Lisa's well-intentioned but financially oblivious best friend. Let me guess, nothing low-key? Lisa laughed softly. You could say that. There was a chef, a bartender, and I'm pretty sure the flowers cost more than my textbooks this semester. Wow! Well, happy birthday anyway, though I'm guessing your idea of a celebration would have involved fewer staff members. Exactly, Lisa confirmed, logging into the library system. Just a few friends, maybe dinner somewhere casual. Nothing. That required a professional photographer. Derek whistled low. There was a photographer. Man, that's next level. You sure you two grew up in the same economic reality? The question, though asked lightly, struck a nerve. Lisa and Natalie hadn't grown up in the same economic reality, not remotely. They'd met as undergraduates, randomly assigned as roommates despite their vastly different backgrounds. Over 4 years, they'd formed a friendship that somehow bridged the gap between Lisa's careful budgeting and Natalie's carefree spending. Yet moments like the birthday party served as stark reminders of that persistent divide. We manage, Lisa said finally, not wanting to seem ungrateful. She's incredibly generous. Derek regarded her thoughtfully. Just make sure that generosity doesn't come with an invoice. They both laughed, the comment seemingly absurd. Natalie would never expect repayment for a party she had insisted on throwing. That wasn't how their friendship worked. At least, that's what Lisa told herself as she turned her attention to the stack of returned books awaiting processing. The next evening, Lisa was at her kitchen table grading papers when her phone chimed with a text notification. Natalie's name appeared on the screen, accompanied by a message that caused Lisa to freeze, red pen suspended mid-comment on a student's essay. Hey, birthday girl, hope you're recovered from all the fun. Mom and I were going over the party expenses, and we figured you'd want to chip in for your share. It comes to $93 for the food. Let me know when you can Venmo it. Thanks. Lisa stared at the message, certain she'd misunderstood. They were asking her to pay for a party she hadn't planned, hadn't asked for, and had explicitly requested be kept simple. The red pen slipped from her fingers, leaving a tiny mark on the essay before her. A student mistake, suddenly far less pressing than the shock reverberating through her system. She read the message again, searching for some hint that Natalie was joking. Finding none, she set her phone down carefully, as though it might detonate if handled too roughly. The casual expectation in those words, the assumption that of course Lisa would want to pay for food she hadn't ordered at a party, whose scale she had specifically tried to discourage. It left her breathless with disbelief. $93, nearly a quarter of her weekly income. A sum that would mean adjusting her carefully balanced budget, perhaps skipping a few meals out or delaying a textbook purchase. For Natalie, it might represent nothing more than a footnote in her monthly expenses. For Lisa, it was rent money, grocery money, the thin margin between making ends meet and falling short. As the initial shock ebbed, other emotions rushed in to fill the void. Embarrassment at having enjoyed a celebration she apparently couldn't afford, anger at the assumption she would pay without prior agreement, hurt that Natalie, her closest friend, remained so willfully blind to their financial differences. Most of all, Lisa felt a growing sense of betrayal. The party hadn't been a gift, after all, but a cost to be shared. A fact that would have altered her experience entirely had she known in advance. She picked up her phone again, composing and deleting responses as her emotions fluctuated between confrontation and capitulation. Should she explain that she couldn't afford it? Should she pay without complaint to preserve the friendship? Should she point out the fundamental unfairness of the expectation? In the end, she set the phone aside. Without responding, needing time to process both the request and her reaction to it. The papers before her now seemed trivial compared to the question confronting her. What was the true cost of maintaining a friendship across such a vast economic divide, and was she willing or able to pay it? The text message sat unanswered. On Lisa's phone, a digital manifestation of the tension that had always existed beneath the surface of her friendship with Natalie. As she attempted to return to grading, the words blurred before her eyes, replaced by memories of other moments when their different financial realities had created silent friction. Natalie suggesting expensive restaurants without checking if Lisa could afford them. Casual shopping trips where Lisa pretended to be just browsing, while Natalie made impulsive purchases. Vacations planned with no consideration for budget constraints. Most of those situations Lisa had navigated with careful explanations or gentle redirections. This, however, felt different, more direct, less possible to sidestep with tact and good humor. "Food expenses," Lisa muttered, finally setting aside the ungraded papers. What exactly constituted food expenses at a party with professional catering? The hors d'oeuvres she'd barely eaten while circulating among guests? The 3-tier cake with her name elegantly scripted in fondant? The specialized cocktails mixed by the bartender Natalie had hired? Lisa opened her laptop and pulled up her banking app, surveying her accounts with a critical eye. She could pay the $93, technically. It would mean tightening her budget even further, perhaps picking up an extra shift at the library. But the principle of the matter gnawed at her. If she paid without question now, what would be expected next time? Would every gesture of generosity from the Parkers come with an after-the-fact invoice? Her phone chimed again, another text from Natalie. "Did you get my message? Mom's asking about the party expenses." The casual persistence only intensified Lisa's discomfort. Of course Olivia was asking. She probably viewed the whole thing as a straightforward business transaction rather than a gesture of friendship. To people like the Parkers, who never had to think twice about spending, such arrangements might seem perfectly reasonable. Lisa took a deep breath and typed a response, aiming for honesty without confrontation. "Got your message. I'm a bit surprised since I didn't know I'd be expected to contribute financially. When you offered to throw the party, I assumed it was a gift." She hit send before she could second-guess herself, then waited anxiously for Natalie's reply. It came quickly, the tone unchanged. "Oh, I figured you'd want to cover your food at least. Everyone always chips in for party food. No worries if you can't right now, though. We can work something out." The response left Lisa even more confused. Everyone always chips in? In what social circle was this the norm? Certainly not in Lisa's experience, where the host assumed the costs of any party they initiated. Moreover, the offer to work something out carried an uncomfortable implication that payment was merely being deferred, not forgiven. Lisa set her phone down again, emotional exhaustion settling over her. She couldn't deal with this tonight, not with ungraded papers still waiting and an early class the next morning. The birthday that had briefly made her feel special now left a bitter aftertaste, tainted by an expectation she couldn't reconcile with her understanding of friendship or celebration. As she finally crawled into bed that night, Lisa found herself facing questions larger than a simple Venmo request. Was her friendship with Natalie built on mutual understanding, or merely a persistent failure to acknowledge their fundamental differences? Could a relationship survive when one party remained oblivious to the constraints shaping the others? Life, and most pressingly, how could she address the current situation without damaging a friendship she genuinely valued, despite its complications? The answers wouldn't come easily, Lisa knew, but one thing was certain. The 93 bill for her birthday party had revealed cracks in the foundation of her oldest friendship. Cracks that had perhaps been there all along, hidden beneath the surface of shared memories and genuine affection, waiting for just such a moment to reveal themselves in the harsh light of adult reality. The following morning, Lisa woke to the insistent buzz of her alarm with a heaviness that had nothing to do with physical fatigue. The birthday bill situation remained unresolved, a cloud hovering over her typically ordered routine. As she prepared for her day, mechanically pouring cereal and reviewing lesson notes, her phone remained conspicuously silent. No further messages from Natalie, no resolution to the uncomfortable impasse they'd reached. Lisa found herself moving through her morning classes with divided attention, part of her mind perpetually circling back to the text exchange. During her lunch break, she retreated to the quiet corner of the faculty lounge, pulling out her phone to find advice on navigating this unfamiliar social territory. She typed, "Friend charged me for my birthday party," into a search engine, surprised to find numerous forum discussions on similar situations. Apparently, she wasn't the first person to encounter this particular modern etiquette puzzle. The opinions she found online ranged widely. Some commenters insisted that expecting payment without prior agreement was inappropriate regardless of the circumstances. Others suggested that in certain social circles, cost-sharing for celebrations was indeed the norm. A few recommended direct confrontation, many more advised subtle compromise to preserve the relationship. None of the scenarios quite matched. Her situation with Natalie, a friendship spanning years and bridging significant economic differences. Lisa closed her browser with a sigh, no closer to a solution than before. "You look like someone assigned you to grade 100 freshmen. Essays?" observed Eleanor Martinez, a senior faculty member, as she settled into the chair across from Lisa with her coffee. "Everything all right?" Lisa had always appreciated Eleanor's straightforward mentorship, so different from the competitive atmosphere that characterized many academic relationships. Before she could censor herself, Lisa found herself summarizing the birthday party situation, concluding with the unexpected bill that had arrived via text. $93, she finished, embarrassed by how trivial the amount might seem to someone with a full professor's salary. "I know it doesn't sound like much, but it's not about the amount," Eleanor interrupted firmly. "It's about the principle and the lack of communication. No one should be expected to pay for something they didn't agree to in advance." The validation in Eleanor's words loosened something tight in Lisa's chest. "Exactly. If she'd told me beforehand, I could have made an informed decision. I might have suggested something simpler that fit my budget." "Or you might have declined entirely," Eleanor added, stirring her coffee thoughtfully, which was perhaps why she didn't mention it until after the fact. Lisa hadn't considered that possibility, that Natalie might have deliberately withheld information about costs, knowing Lisa would likely object. The thought introduced a new dimension of discomfort to the situation, suggesting a level of manipulation she didn't want to attribute to her friend. "I don't think she meant to be underhanded," Lisa said slowly. "Natalie just doesn't think about money the way most people do. It's always been an abstraction to her, not a concrete limitation." Eleanor's expression softened with understanding. "Friendships across class lines can be complicated. You both bring different assumptions to the relationship based on your experiences. The question is whether you can bridge that gap through honest communication." "Would you pay the bill?" Lisa asked directly, curious about what someone with Eleanor's wisdom and life experience would do. Eleanor considered the question carefully. "I think I would pay this time, but with a very clear conversation about expectations moving forward. Make it explicit that you can't afford to be surprised like this again, and any future celebrations need to be planned with your budget in mind." They spoke for a few more minutes until the warning bell signaled the end of the lunch period. As Lisa gathered her things, Eleanor touched her arm lightly. "Remember, true friendship can withstand honest conversations about boundaries, even uncomfortable ones. If Natalie values your friendship as much as you value hers, you'll find a way through this. Lisa nodded, grateful for the perspective. Thank you, Eleanor. That helps more than you know. The afternoon classes passed more smoothly, Lisa's mind clearer now that she had begun formulating a plan. She would pay the $93 this time, viewing it as the cost of a lesson learned about explicit communication. But she would also initiate a conversation with Natalie about financial boundaries, not an easy discussion, but a necessary one if their friendship was to evolve in a healthy direction. As Lisa was packing up her materials after her final class, her phone chimed with a notification. Another text from Natalie. Hey, Mom's wondering if you got my message about the party costs. Let me know when you can transfer the money. We're trying to settle all the expenses. Thanks. The gentle pressure, the casual assumption of agreement, the involvement of Olivia in what should have been a matter between friends, all of it reinforced Lisa's sense that this situation needed addressing directly, not just with payment, but with words that might finally bridge the understanding gap between them. With renewed determination, Lisa texted back, I'll transfer the money tonight, but can we meet for coffee soon? There's something important I'd like to talk about. Natalie's reply came instantly. Sure thing, coffee sounds great. Is everything okay? Lisa hesitated, then responded with careful honesty. Everything's fine, just something I think we should discuss in person. How about tomorrow after my evening class, around 8 at Groundwork? Perfect. See you then. Came Natalie's cheerful reply. Lisa pocketed her phone, a mixture of resolution and apprehension settling in her stomach. Tomorrow would bring a conversation years overdue, one that might strengthen their friendship or reveal its fundamental incompatibility with the adults they had become. Either way, it was time to address the unspoken economic divide that had always shadowed their relationship, brought into sharp relief by a birthday party and its unexpected aftermath. Get ready to find out what happens next. Every friendship reaches a crossroads, a moment when unspoken tensions finally demand to be addressed. What will this confrontation reveal about Lisa and Natalie's relationship? Stay tuned to discover if their bond can survive when financial realities collide. That evening, Lisa sat cross-legged on her bed, staring at her phone with the payment app open before her. The sum, 93, seemed to represent far more than a mere financial transaction. It was a symbolic moment, a decision point in how she would allow herself to be treated within this friendship. With a deep breath, she entered the amount, added birthday food in the description field, and hit send. The money left her account instantly, leaving her with a curious mixture of resentment and relief. Minutes later, Natalie responded with a string of heart emojis and, "Thanks, bestie, see you tomorrow." The casual gratitude, unmarked by any acknowledgement, of the awkwardness surrounding the payment only reinforced Lisa's conviction that tomorrow's conversation was necessary. Lisa closed the payment app and opened her budget spreadsheet instead, adjusting categories to accommodate the unexpected expense. $93 meant reducing her already modest entertainment fund and delaying a needed visit to the dentist for another month. These were the concrete realities of her financial life, the careful calculations that Natalie had never had to make. The next day dragged endlessly. Lisa moved through her teaching and study routines mechanically, rehearsing potential conversation openers in her mind. By the time she arrived at Groundwork Coffee at 7:55 p.m., her stomach was tight with nervous anticipation. She ordered a simple, black coffee, the cheapest item on the menu, and claimed a quiet corner table, arranging herself to appear more composed than she felt. Natalie arrived 10 minutes late, a typical occurrence that Lisa usually overlooked, but now registered as another symptom of their different realities. Time, like money, was something Natalie had the luxury of spending freely. "Sorry I'm late," Natalie exclaimed, setting down her designer handbag as she slid into the seat opposite Lisa. Traffic was insane. Have you been waiting long? Let me get something to drink. She disappeared to the counter before Lisa could respond, returning. Minutes later, with an elaborate specialty drink topped with whipped cream and caramel drizzle. The contrast with Lisa's plain coffee wasn't lost on either of them. So, Natalie said, stirring her drink. What's up? You seemed kind of serious in your text. Is everything okay? Lisa had planned to ease into the conversation gradually, but something about Natalie's casual demeanor, the untroubled confidence of someone who had never had to count coins for laundry money, pushed her toward directness. I wanted to talk about the birthday party, she began, wrapping her hands around her coffee mug, specifically about being asked to pay for it afterward. Natalie's expression shifted to confusion. You mean the food costs? Did that cause a problem? You should have said something if money was tight. I would have covered it until your next paycheck. The offer of deferment rather than understanding only highlighted the disconnect Lisa was trying to address. It's not about whether I could pay it, she explained carefully. It's about not knowing I would be expected to pay in the first place. When someone says they're throwing you a birthday party, the assumption is usually that they're hosting, covering the costs as a gift. Natalie tilted her head, genuinely perplexed. But it was such a big party with so many people, I just assumed everyone understood they'd chip in for food. That's how it usually works with my other friends. That's the thing, Lisa said, leaning forward slightly. Your other friends probably come from similar financial backgrounds. They share the same expectations because they share the same context. But my context is different, Natalie. Has been since we met in freshman year. What do you mean? Natalie's confusion seemed sincere, which somehow made the conversation both easier and more difficult. Lisa took a steadying breath. I mean that I've always had to be careful with money in ways you haven't. When I suggested nothing fancy for my birthday, it wasn't just modesty speaking. It was a practical recognition of what I can afford, including what I can afford to reciprocate when your birthday comes around. Understanding began to dawn in Natalie's expression, followed quickly by embarrassment. Oh God, Lisa. I never thought about it that way. I just wanted to do something special for you because you're my best friend. I didn't mean to put you in an awkward position. I know you didn't, Lisa assured her, the knot in her stomach beginning to loosen. That's why I wanted to talk about it directly. We've been friends for years, but we've never really addressed how different our financial situations are. Maybe it's time we did. The conversation that followed was unlike any they'd had before, honest in ways that were occasionally uncomfortable but ultimately illuminating. Lisa explained the realities of living on a graduate student stipend, the careful planning behind every expense, the impossibility of spontaneous splurges that Natalie took for granted. Natalie, in turn, acknowledged her blind spots, moments, when her assumptions about money had created burdens she'd never intended to impose. I wish you'd told me sooner, Natalie said finally, her elaborate coffee now cold and forgotten. All those times you said you couldn't go out, or weren't hungry, or needed to study instead of joining us for weekend trips, were those all about money? Not all, Lisa admitted, but many, yes. It's hard to constantly be the one saying, I can't afford that. After a while, it's easier to make excuses. That stops now, Natalie declared with characteristic decisiveness. From now on, we plan things together, with clear expectations about costs, and I promise never to surprise. You with a bill again. She paused, then added quietly, I'm going to Venmo the $93 back to you. The party was my idea, and I should have been clear about the costs up front if I expected you to contribute. You don't have to do that, Lisa began, but Natalie shook her head firmly. I want to. It's the right thing to do, and maybe next year we can plan your birthday together. Something special that works for both of us." As they left the coffee shop an hour later, Lisa felt as though a weight had lifted. The conversation hadn't been easy, but it had been necessary. A recalibration of expectations that might allow their friendship to evolve more honestly. The tension that had been building since the birthday text had finally found release, not in conflict, but in mutual understanding. What Lisa couldn't have known as they hugged goodbye on the sidewalk was that their newfound clarity would soon be tested in unexpected ways. The birthday bill had been only the first in a series of events that would challenge their friendship, forcing both women to examine not just their financial differences, but deeper questions of loyalty, honesty, and the true meaning of equality in relationships marked by inequality. Have you ever had a friendship where financial differences created misunderstandings or tension? If you've experienced something similar to Lisa's situation, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. 3 days after their coffee shop conversation, Lisa was grading papers at home when her phone chimed with a payment notification. Natalie had sent $93 with a message, "Birthday refund. Let's plan the next one together." The gesture brought a smile to Lisa's face, not so much for the money itself as for the evidence that their conversation had made a genuine impact. Their friendship seemed to enter a new phase after that night at Groundwork. Natalie began suggesting more budget-conscious outings, movie nights at her apartment instead of expensive theater tickets, potluck dinners rather than trendy restaurants. She asked about costs before making plans, a small but significant change that made Lisa feel seen in ways she hadn't before. For her part, Lisa worked to be more transparent about her financial boundaries, declining invitations honestly rather than making excuses. The new dynamic felt healthier, more balanced, despite their continuing economic disparity. 2 weeks after the birthday bill conversation, Natalie invited Lisa to Sunday brunch at her apartment. "Nothing fancy," she promised over the phone. "Just us and a few friends, completely casual." Lisa accepted the invitation with newfound confidence, relieved that their friendship seemed to be navigating its way toward a more balanced footing. When Sunday arrived, she dressed in simple jeans and a sweater, bringing a homemade coffee cake as her contribution, something affordable yet thoughtful. Upon arriving at Natalie's building, Lisa noticed something different in the doorman's greeting, a warmth that went beyond professional courtesy. "Good to see you again, Ms. Morgan," he said as he pressed the elevator button. "Ms. Parker mentioned you'd be coming." The doors opened to reveal Natalie's hallway, mercifully free of birthday decorations this time. When Lisa knocked, Natalie answered immediately, wearing an apron and sporting a smudge of flour on her cheek. "You're cooking?" Lisa asked, unable to hide her surprise. In all their years of friendship, she had rarely seen Natalie prepare anything more complex than cereal. "Trying to," Natalie laughed, accepting the coffee cake with genuine appreciation. "Mom's been giving me lessons. Come in, everyone's in the kitchen." Lisa followed her into the apartment, bracing herself for a crowd similar to the birthday party. Instead, she found just 3 other people gathered around the kitchen island: Kyle from Natalie's office, Sophia from their undergraduate days, and Andrea, whom Lisa had met briefly at the birthday celebration. "Small group," Lisa observed quietly as she helped Natalie arrange fruit on a platter. "I thought it would be better this way," Natalie replied, her voice equally low. "More genuine, just people who actually care about each other, not a social media photo op." The comment revealed a self-awareness that touched Lisa deeply. Perhaps their conversation had affected Natalie more profoundly than she had realized. Brunch progressed with an easy camaraderie that reminded Lisa why she and Natalie had become friends in the first place. They shared stories from their college days, laughed over Natalie's slightly overcooked quiche, and debated the merits of various streaming shows. No one checked designer labels or subtly competed for status, the toxic undercurrent Lisa had sometimes felt in Natalie's broader social circle. After the others departed, Lisa stayed to help clean up. As they loaded the dishwasher, Natalie seemed uncharacteristically hesitant, starting sentences only to trail off mid-thought. "What's on your mind?" Lisa finally asked, closing the dishwasher with a gentle click. Natalie leaned against the counter, twisting a dish towel in her hands. "I've been thinking a lot about our conversation, about money and expectations and all that." "Me too," Lisa admitted. "It was a good talk. Overdue, probably." "Definitely overdue," Natalie agreed. "And it made me realize something else I need to tell you." She took a deep breath. "My mother wants to offer you a job." Lisa blinked, caught off guard by the unexpected pivot. "A job? What kind of job?" "Editorial assistant at the publishing house. Entry level but with potential for advancement. The salary's decent, better than what you're making at the university anyway." The prospect was both tempting and troubling. Olivia Parker was an executive editor at a prestigious Chicago publishing house, a position that gave her significant influence in hiring decisions. A full-time role in publishing would certainly pay better than Lisa's graduate assistantship, perhaps even allowing her to move to a nicer apartment or start building savings. Yet something about the offer felt uncomfortably like charity, or worse, compensation for the birthday bill embarrassment. "That's unexpected," Lisa said carefully. "Why now?" Natalie had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "Mum's been looking for someone since her last assistant left. After the whole birthday thing happened, I mentioned that you might be looking for better paying work. It was stupid. I shouldn't have discussed your finances with her." "No, you shouldn't have." Lisa agreed, more disappointed than angry. "That was private." "I know, and I'm sorry," Natalie said quickly, "but the job offer is legitimate. Mom needs someone organized and literate, and you'd be perfect. It has nothing to do with, helping you out or anything." The assurance rang hollow, especially given the timing. Lisa could easily imagine the conversation between Natalie and Olivia. Poor Lisa, unable to afford even her share of the birthday food, perhaps needing more lucrative employment. The thought made her stomach clench, with a familiar mixture of pride and insecurity. "I appreciate the thought," Lisa said finally, choosing her words with care. "But I'm committed to finishing my degree. A full-time job would interfere with that." "It could be part-time," Natalie countered eagerly. "Mom said she's flexible. And publishing experience would look great on your resume, especially if you want to go into academia." The persistent suggested this had been thoroughly discussed. Between mother and daughter, another conversation about Lisa's life, conducted without her participation. The realization stung more than she wanted to admit. "I'll think about it," Lisa promised, mainly to end the discussion. "But please, Natalie, don't discuss my financial situation with your mother again, even with good intentions." Natalie nodded, solemnly. "I won't. I really am sorry." The apology seemed sincere, yet as Lisa left the apartment shortly afterward, she couldn't shake a lingering discomfort. One honest conversation hadn't magically erased years of ingrained patterns or the fundamental power imbalance in their relationship. The job offer, however well-intended, highlighted how easily Natalie and Olivia could affect Lisa's life with their influence and connections, a form of power that had nothing to do with friendship and everything to do with privilege. As she rode the bus back to her neighborhood, Lisa found herself wondering if true equality was possible in a friendship marked by such significant disparities. Perhaps the best they could hope for was mutual respect and ongoing honesty, a continuous process of navigating differences rather than a problem to be permanently solved. The thought was still occupying her mind when her phone chimed with a text from a number she didn't recognize. "Hello, Lisa. This is Olivia Parker. Natalie mentioned I could reach out to you directly about the editorial assistant position. Would you be available for coffee this week to discuss? I believe this could be an excellent opportunity for you." Lisa stared at the message, torn between professional interest and personal unease. The job might indeed be a good opportunity, separate from the complicated dynamics of her friendship with Natalie, or it might further entangle her life with the Parkers, making it even harder to establish healthy boundaries. With the bus approaching her stop, Lisa pocketed her phone without responding. This decision required careful thought, weighing practical benefits against emotional costs. Whatever choice she made would shape not just her professional future, but the evolving contours of her most important friendship, a relationship that had already weathered one significant test and might soon face another. The streetlights had begun to flicker on as Lisa walked the 2 blocks from the bus stop to her apartment building. Spring in Chicago brought unpredictable weather, and the evening had turned unexpectedly chilly, matching her unsettled mood. As she climbed the stairs to her 3rd-floor apartment, she found herself mentally composing and discarding possible responses to Olivia's text. Inside, she tossed her keys onto the small table by the door and sank onto her second-hand couch, finally pulling out her phone to confront the waiting message. Professional opportunity or unwanted charity, job offer or friendship complication. The lines seemed increasingly blurred. After several minutes of contemplation, Lisa typed a carefully neutral response. "Thank you for thinking of me. I'd be happy to hear more about the position. Could we meet Wednesday afternoon?" She added her availability, reviewed the message for tone, and sent it before she could overthink further. Olivia's reply came almost immediately, suggesting they meet at an upscale cafe near the publishing house at 2 p.m. on Wednesday. Lisa confirmed the appointment, then set her phone aside with a sigh. Whether this development represented an opportunity or an obligation remained to be seen, but at least she would approach it with eyes open. The following morning, Lisa arrived at the university to find a small package waiting in her departmental mailbox. Inside was a vintage edition of Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own, a book she had once mentioned admiring during a conversation with Natalie. A note accompanied it. "Saw this and thought of you. No strings attached, just a friend to friend. Gift N." The gesture touched Lisa deeply. Unlike the extravagant party or the job connection, this was a gift that demonstrated true understanding, thoughtful rather than expensive, personal rather than impressive. Perhaps Natalie was learning after all. Lisa sent a quick thank you text, receiving a row of heart emojis in response. The simple exchange felt more genuinely equal than many of their interactions of late, a small but significant step toward a more balanced friendship. Wednesday arrived with unexpected sunshine, warming the Chicago streets. Lisa chose her clothing with particular care. Professional enough for a potential job interview, but not so formal as to suggest desperation. The cafe Olivia had selected was predictably elegant, with white tablecloths and discreet service. Lisa arrived 10 minutes early, giving herself time to review mental notes about her qualifications and questions about the position. Olivia Parker entered precisely at 2, commanding attention in a tailored suit that probably cost more than Lisa's monthly rent. She spotted Lisa immediately, approaching with the confident stride of someone accustomed to rooms rearranging themselves to accommodate her presence. "Lisa, dear, how lovely to see you outside of a party setting." Olivia extended perfectly manicured hands in greeting. "Thank you for making time in your busy schedule." The formality of the interaction, so different from Natalie's casual warmth, set the tone for what followed. Over expensive coffee and tiny pastries that Olivia insisted on ordering, they discussed the editorial assistant position in detailed professional terms. To Lisa's relief, it sounded like legitimate employment rather than a manufactured opportunity. 20 hours weekly of substantive editorial work, flexible scheduling to accommodate her graduate studies, and compensation significantly higher than her current assistantship. Natalie speaks very highly of your organizational skills and attention to detail, Olivia remarked, stirring her coffee with practiced elegance, both essential qualities in publishing. I appreciate that, Lisa replied carefully, though I'm curious about the timing of this offer given recent miscommunications. Olivia's perfectly shaped eyebrow arched slightly. You're referring to the birthday party situation, I presume. The direct acknowledgement was somewhat unexpected. Lisa nodded, meeting Olivia's gaze steadily. Yes, I can't help wondering if this job offer is related. Not in the way you might think, Olivia replied, setting down her coffee cup with precision. The position exists independently of any social awkwardness between you and my daughter. However, she added with surprising candor, Natalie's mention of your financial constraints did bring you specifically to mind as a candidate. The honesty was both refreshing and slightly uncomfortable. Lisa appreciated the lack of pretense. Even as she recognized the power dynamics at play, Olivia controlled access to a job Lisa genuinely needed, creating an inherent imbalance in their interaction. I value transparency, Lisa said finally, and I would want any professional relationship to be based on my qualifications, not my friendship with Natalie or any sense of obligation following the party misunderstanding. Olivia studied her with newfound interest. That's precisely the kind of direct communication we value at Henderson Publishing. The literary world runs on relationships, Lisa, but the best ones are built on mutual respect rather than social niceties. The conversation shifted then, moving into specific responsibilities of the position, projects currently in development, and the practical details of balancing the work with Lisa's academic commitments. By the time they parted an hour later, Lisa had agreed to submit a formal application, and Olivia had promised to arrange interviews with other team members. Regardless of how this particular opportunity develops, Olivia said as they prepared to leave, I've enjoyed our conversation. You have a clarity of purpose that reminds me of myself at your age, though I had considerably more financial advantage. The acknowledgement of her privilege, offered without apology or condescension, earned Olivia a genuine smile from Lisa. Thank you for your time and for being straightforward about the situation. As Lisa walked to the bus stop afterward, her mind buzzed with mixed emotions. The job itself seemed promising, intellectually engaging work with better compensation than her current position. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that accepting it would further complicate her relationship with Natalie, blurring the lines between friendship, charity, and professional opportunity. Her phone vibrated with a text from Natalie. How did it go with Mom? Did you love the job? She texted that you were super impressive. The enthusiasm was pure Natalie, effusive, well-intentioned, and completely oblivious to the complex emotions Lisa might be experiencing. Once Lisa would have responded with reassuring platitudes, smoothing over any awkwardness for the sake of harmony. Now, after their coffee shop conversation, she opted for honesty instead. The job sounds interesting, and your mum was surprisingly direct, still processing how I feel about the whole situation. Can we talk about it in person soon? Natalie's reply came quickly. Absolutely. Dinner at my place tomorrow? Just the two of us, I promise. We can talk about anything. Lisa agreed, pocketing her phone as her bus arrived. Whatever came next, whether she took the job or not, whether their friendship evolved or fractured under the weight of their differences, she was committed to moving forward with greater honesty. The birthday bill had forced a reckoning that was perhaps long overdue, bringing to light tensions that needed addressing if their relationship was to survive into adulthood. As the bus carried her back to her neighborhood, Lisa found herself wondering what other assumptions and expectations might come to light as they continued navigating this new terrain of explicit communication. The thought was both daunting and oddly liberating, a recognition that true friendship required ongoing cultivation rather than the comfortable but sometimes false harmony of unexamined patterns. The story is about to take another surprising turn. What will Lisa decide about the job offer? And how will dinner with Natalie change their friendship yet again? Keep watching to find out. Thursday evening found Lisa climbing the now familiar stairs to Natalie's apartment, a bottle of modestly priced wine in hand. Unlike previous visits, she arrived with a sense of purpose rather than anxiety, determined to maintain the honest communication they had established at Groundwork Coffee. Natalie greeted her with characteristic enthusiasm, ushering her into an apartment that for once appeared genuinely casual, takeout containers from their favorite Thai restaurant arranged. On the coffee table, the television queued up with a documentary they'd been meaning to watch. "I thought we could keep it super low-key tonight," Natalie explained, taking the wine with appreciation, "just like our Sunday movie nights in college." The thoughtfulness of the arrangement wasn't lost on Lisa. Perhaps their conversation really had made a lasting impression. They settled on the couch with food and wine, catching up on department gossip and mutual friends before addressing the elephant in the room. Finally, as they were finishing their pad thai, Natalie broached the subject directly. "So, what did you really think about the job? Mom said you were very professional, but I want the friend version." Lisa considered her response carefully. "The position itself sounds like a good fit. Interesting work, decent pay, flexible hours. Your mother was surprisingly straightforward about everything." "But," Natalie prompted, hearing the unspoken reservation in Lisa's tone, "but I'm concerned about blurring the lines between our friendship and my professional life," Lisa admitted, "especially after the birthday situation. I don't want to feel obligated to your family in multiple areas of my life." Natalie set down her wine glass, her expression unusually serious. "I get that, and if you don't want the job, that's completely fine. But I hope you know that Mom wouldn't have offered if she didn't think you were qualified. She's ruthless about maintaining Henderson's reputation." "I believe that," Lisa acknowledged. "But there's still the question of how it would affect our friendship. Would you be comfortable if I worked for your mother? Would it change how we interact?" "Honestly, I think it could be good for us," Natalie replied after a moment's reflection. "We'd have more in common day to day, and maybe seeing you excel in a professional context would help Mom understand you better as a capable adult, not just Natalie's friend who needs financial help." The assessment was surprisingly insightful, revealing a depth of understanding Lisa hadn't always credited Natalie with possessing. Perhaps she had been underestimating her friend, assuming obliviousness where there might actually be awareness constrained by different social protocols. "I hadn't thought of it that way," Lisa admitted. "I was focused on the potential downsides." "That's your pragmatic side," Natalie smiled, "always planning for problems. It's one of the things I've always admired about you, even when it drives me crazy." The compliment, offered with such casual sincerity, warmed something in Lisa's chest. This was the Natalie she had befriended years ago, genuine, affectionate, and occasionally capable of surprising insight beneath her socialite exterior. "I'm still thinking about it," Lisa said finally. "But I appreciate the perspective, and I appreciate you arranging the introduction, even if the timing was a bit odd." "About that," Natalie said, refilling their wine glasses. "There's something else I should probably tell you, something about the job that Mom might not have mentioned." Lisa tensed slightly, bracing for a revelation that might undermine the position's legitimacy. "What is it?" "It's my fault the previous assistant left," Natalie confessed, looking genuinely remorseful. "I dated her briefly last fall, and when we broke up, she couldn't handle working with my mother anymore, so she quit without notice, which left Mom in a difficult position." Lisa stared, processing multiple surprises at once. "You dated a woman? I didn't know you were interested in women." Natalie laughed, the sound tinged with nervousness. "That's your first question? Not about how I messed up Mom's department?" "I'm processing multiple pieces of information," Lisa defended with a small smile. "And your dating life seems more immediately relevant to our friendship than your mother's." "Staffing issues. Fair enough," Natalie conceded. "Yes, I'm bisexual. I thought you knew. I mentioned dating Eliza several times last year." "You said Eli, not Eliza," Lisa corrected, suddenly remembering conversations where she had assumed Natalie was referring to a male date. "I automatically pictured a guy." "Well, now you know," Natalie shrugged, though her casual demeanor seemed slightly forced. "Anyway, the point is, if you take the job, you should know that Mom might be extra protective of her department's stability, and extra grateful to have someone reliable who isn't likely to leave abruptly because of my disastrous love life." The revelation shifted Lisa's perspective on the job offer yet again. Perhaps it wasn't charity or compensation for the birthday misunderstanding, but simply Olivia's practical solution to a departmental problem. Hiring someone with the necessary skills who also came with a built-in understanding of the Parker family dynamics. "Thank you for telling me," Lisa said sincerely. "That context helps, though I'm a little hurt you didn't feel you could be open about your dating life before now." Natalie looked genuinely surprised. "It wasn't a secret. I just didn't make a big announcement. My parents have known since high school. I figured you knew too." The casual disclosure highlighted another difference between them. Natalie had grown up in a household where her identity was accepted without drama, while Lisa came from a much more conservative background where such revelations would have been treated as major family events. "Well, I know now," Lisa said, raising her glass in a small toast, "and I'm glad you told me. About everything." They clinked glasses, the moment marking yet another layer of honesty in their evolving friendship. As they turned their attention to the documentary, Lisa found herself reflecting on how quickly their relationship had transformed over the past few weeks. From the shock of the birthday bill to this evening of genuine conversation and mutual disclosure. The job offer remained a complex decision, but it no longer felt like a potential threat to their friendship. Instead, it represented just one of many choices they would navigate together as they continued growing into the adults they were becoming, shaped by different circumstances, but connected by a history that deserved the effort of honest communication. What Lisa couldn't have anticipated as they settled into comfortable companionship for the remainder of the evening was that their newfound equilibrium would soon face its greatest test yet, one that would force them both to decide what they truly valued in friendship and what they were willing to sacrifice to preserve it. The following week passed in a blur of activity for Lisa. She submitted her formal application for the editorial assistant position, attended promising interviews with Olivia's colleagues at Henderson Publishing, and continued her regular teaching and study routine. By Friday, she had received an official job offer, 20 hours weekly, competitive pay, and start dates that accommodated the conclusion of her current semester obligations. After careful consideration, including a detailed budget analysis that confirmed the substantial improvement in her financial situation the position would provide, Lisa accepted the offer. She texted Natalie immediately afterward, receiving an explosion of celebratory emojis in response, followed by an invitation to dinner the following evening to mark the occasion. "Nothing fancy," Natalie promised. "Just a little celebration for your new job. You can come straight from the library. Casual clothes, fine." Lisa arrived at Natalie's building Saturday evening to find the doorman holding an elegant envelope addressed to her. Miss Parker asked me to give you this when you arrived, he explained. Inside the elevator, Lisa opened the envelope to find a handwritten note from Natalie. Change of plans. Meeting you at Allegro instead. 7:30 reservation under my name. Can't wait to celebrate. N. Lisa checked her watch with a frown. It was already 7:15, and Allegro was an upscale restaurant at least 15 minutes away by taxi, farther by public transportation. Moreover, she was dressed exactly as instructed, in casual jeans and a simple blouse appropriate for a quiet dinner at home, not an expensive restaurant known for its formal atmosphere. For a moment, she considered texting her regrets and heading home. The last-minute change of plans, without consultation or consideration for her circumstances, felt uncomfortably like the old pattern they had supposedly addressed. Yet something gave her pause. Perhaps the genuine progress they had made in recent weeks, or the recognition that friendship sometimes required flexibility, even in the face of frustration. With a sigh, Lisa hailed a taxi outside Natalie's building, wincing at the expense, but not seeing an alternative that would get her to the restaurant on time. As the cab navigated evening traffic, she tried to manage her rising irritation, reminding herself that Natalie's intentions were almost certainly good, even if her execution remained problematic. Allegro's elegant facade came into view at 7:35. Lisa paid the driver, smoothed her casual clothing as best she could, and approached the restaurant with growing apprehension. The hostess gave her attire a subtly disapproving glance, but checked the reservation professionally. "Ah, yes, the rest of your party has already been seated. Please follow me." The rest of your party. Lisa's apprehension deepened as she followed the hostess through the dimly lit restaurant. Just how many people had Natalie invited to this little celebration? Her question was answered moments later as they approached a large round table near the window. Natalie sat at its center, surrounded by half a dozen people, including her mother, 2 Henderson publishing editors Lisa had met during her interviews, and several faces she recognized from the birthday party. "Lisa!" Natalie waved enthusiastically. "Finally! We've been waiting to order champagne." All eyes turned to Lisa, standing awkwardly in her casual attire amid a sea of business casual and cocktail dresses. Olivia Parker, elegant as always, gave her a sympathetic look that somehow made the situation even more uncomfortable. "I'm so sorry," Lisa began, painfully aware of her inappropriate outfit. "There seems to have been a misunderstanding about the plans for tonight." "Nonsense," Olivia interjected smoothly, rising to pull out the empty chair beside her. "We're delighted you could join us to celebrate your new position. James was just telling us about the manuscript you'll be working on first." The editors nodded encouragingly, professional enough to overlook her appearance. Natalie, however, seemed genuinely confused by Lisa's discomfort. "Is something wrong?" she whispered as Lisa reluctantly took her seat. "You look upset." "We'll talk later," Lisa murmured, forcing a smile as a waiter appeared with champagne. The dinner that followed was an exercise in composure. Lisa navigated professional conversations with her new colleagues while acutely conscious of her jeans and simple blouse, accepting congratulations for a position she was increasingly uncertain about as she watched Natalie order the most expensive items on the menu with casual ease. When Natalie announced that the entire dinner was her treat to celebrate Lisa's new job, the final piece clicked into place. This wasn't a casual celebration between friends. It was a status demonstration. Natalie positioning herself as the generous benefactor, celebrating her less fortunate friend's good fortune, which she had helped orchestrate. The realization sat like lead in Lisa's stomach, souring the exquisite food and making the champagne taste bitter. Had anything really changed? Had their honest conversations made any lasting impact on how Natalie perceived their relationship? By the time dessert arrived, Lisa had reached a decision that felt as inevitable as it was painful. When the party finally began to disperse, she declined Natalie's offer of a shared taxi, claiming she needed some air and would walk for a while. "Are you sure?" Natalie asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "You've been quiet all evening. Did I do something wrong?" The direct question deserved a direct answer, but the restaurant entrance was not the place for the conversation they needed to have. "Not wrong, exactly," Lisa said carefully, "but we should talk about it tomorrow, maybe." "Tomorrow's no good. I have brunch with Mom's friends and then that charity thing in the afternoon. Monday after work?" Even now, Natalie's schedule revealed priorities that felt increasingly distant from Lisa's reality. Nevertheless, she nodded agreement. "Monday works. Your place or mine?" "Yours is probably easier," Natalie decided. "I'll bring dinner from that Italian place you like." With a quick hug that felt mechanical compared to their usual warmth, they parted ways, Natalie into a waiting luxury car service, Lisa toward the nearest bus stop. The contrast couldn't have been more stark or more symbolic of the persistent gap between their worlds. As the bus carried her home through Chicago's glittering nightscape, Lisa mentally composed the email she would send to Olivia Parker first thing in the morning, declining the editorial assistant position with genuine regret but firm conviction. Some boundaries, once crossed, revealed truths that couldn't be unrecognized. Tonight had made clear that working for Olivia while maintaining a healthy friendship with Natalie would be impossible. The power imbalance is too complex, the patterns too ingrained to navigate successfully. The decision brought both sadness and surprising relief. The job would have eased her financial struggles significantly, but at what cost to her self-respect? To the progress she and Natalie had seemingly made toward more honest communication. Some opportunities, Lisa reflected as she watched the city pass by, came with hidden prices too steep to justify the apparent gain. Monday's conversation with Natalie would be difficult, perhaps even friendship-ending, but Lisa understood now that their relationship could not continue as it had been, built on unacknowledged inequalities and unexamined assumptions. Whatever came next, it would need to be something new, something built on genuine understanding rather than good intentions, undermined by lifelong blind spots. As she unlocked her apartment door later that night, Lisa felt an unexpected sense of peace despite the emotional turbulence of the evening. Some choices, though painful, brought clarity that made the cost worthwhile. This, she sensed, was one of them, a turning point that would reshape her future in ways she couldn't yet fully envision, but that somehow felt right despite the immediate loss. The weekend passed with peculiar stillness. Lisa sent her carefully worded email to Olivia early Saturday morning, received a surprisingly understanding response by afternoon, and spent the remainder of the time grading papers and preparing lessons with focused intensity. She didn't contact Natalie, needing the intervening hours to clarify her thoughts and emotions before their Monday conversation. When Monday evening arrived, Lisa had transformed her small apartment into a space of intentional calm. Surfaces cleared, a few candles lit, soft music playing. No pretense of elegance, just honest simplicity, representative of what she could genuinely offer in friendship without pretense or strain. Natalie arrived precisely at 7, bearing the promised Italian food and a bottle of wine that probably cost more than Lisa's weekly grocery budget. Her expression registered momentary surprise at the apartment's atmosphere, so different from their usual casual hangouts. "This looks nice," she commented, setting the food on Lisa's small dining table. "Very intentional. Are we celebrating something?" "Not exactly," Lisa replied, taking the wine to open it. "I just wanted us to be comfortable for this conversation." They served the food in silence, an unusual tension hovering between them. Finally, as they settled at the table, Natalie addressed it directly. "You declined the job," she said simply. Mum told me yesterday. Lisa nodded, meeting her friend's gaze steadily. I did. It wasn't the right fit for me right now. Because of me? Natalie concluded, her perception sharper than Lisa had sometimes given her credit for. Because of Saturday night. Partly, Lisa acknowledged, appreciating the directness. But also because I realized something important about myself, about what I need in my professional life and in my friendships. And what's that? Natalie asked, setting down her fork with careful precision. Equality, Lisa said simply, or at least the genuine attempt at it. Not financial equality, that's not realistic and doesn't need to be, but equality of respect, of consideration for each other's circumstances and boundaries. Saturday night made me realize we're still not there, despite our conversations. Natalie's expression shifted from defensive to reflective. The dinner. You were upset about the restaurant. I was upset about having our plans changed without discussion, about being put in a situation where I was underdressed and uncomfortable, about feeling like an object of charity rather than a friend being genuinely celebrated, Lisa clarified. It wasn't about the restaurant itself. It was about what the evening represented. Silence settled between them as Natalie processed this, her usual rapid-fire responses notably absent. Finally, she looked up, her eyes bright with sudden understanding. You know what's funny? I did the exact same thing my mother always did. To me, growing up, changed plans last minute, gathered an audience, made a production out of something that should have been personal. She shook her head ruefully. I hated it as a kid. Yet here I am, recreating the pattern without even realizing. The insight surprised Lisa, offering a glimpse into family dynamics she hadn't fully considered. You've never talked much about feeling that way with your parents. Because it sounds ridiculous to complain about too many nice things. Too much attention, Natalie replied with unusual bitterness. Poor little rich girl, right? But yes, I grew up with performances rather than celebrations. Everything a social opportunity, every personal milestone a chance for networking. This new perspective shifted Lisa's understanding of her friend significantly, revealing Natalie not as someone oblivious to normal social boundaries, but as someone raised with deliberately distorted ones. The realization didn't erase the impact of Natalie's actions, but it contextualized them in a way that softened Lisa's anger. I'm sorry Saturday made you uncomfortable, Natalie continued. It wasn't what I intended, but intention doesn't erase. Impact, something my therapist has been trying to drill into me for years. You're in therapy? Lisa asked, unable to hide her surprise. Natalie laughed without humor. Since high school. Growing up, Parker comes with its own special brand of dysfunction, just better hidden behind expensive clothes and perfect table manners. The conversation that followed was unlike any they'd had before, deeper, more honest, revealing complementary wounds rather than just different circumstances. Natalie spoke of pressure to maintain appearances at all costs, of relationships evaluated for strategic benefit rather than emotional connection. Lisa shared the invisible burden of constant financial calculation, the exhaustion of navigating spaces designed for wealth when you possessed none. As the candles burned lower and the food grew cold, forgotten on their plates, something new emerged between them, not the casual friendship of their college years or the increasingly strained connection of recent months, but something with the potential for greater authenticity. I still wish you'd taken the job, Natalie admitted finally. But I understand why you didn't, and I respect it, even though Mum's disappointed. I'm disappointed too, in some ways, Lisa acknowledged. It was a good opportunity, but not the right one, not now. I need to find my own path forward, one that doesn't feel like it came through connection rather than merit. Natalie nodded slowly. So where does this leave us? As friends, I mean. It was the question Lisa had been asking herself all weekend, the one that mattered most amid all the complex emotions and realizations. I think it leaves us with a choice, she answered carefully. We can either go back to the old patterns, me accommodating without speaking up, you planning without considering my circumstances, or we can try something different. Something more honest, where we both acknowledge our differences and work around them deliberately, instead of pretending they don't exist. I'd like to try the second option, Natalie said without hesitation. Even if it's harder, even if it means I have to change some pretty ingrained habits. Me too, Lisa agreed, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. The path forward wasn't clear yet, but the willingness to seek it together mattered more than the specific steps they would take. As they finally returned to their forgotten meal, reheating plates in Lisa's ancient microwave and laughing at the transformation of al dente pasta to soft mush, something fundamental had shifted between them. The birthday bill that had initially seemed like such a crisis had ultimately forced a necessary reckoning, painful but potentially transformative. Their friendship had weathered its first adult challenge, emerging changed, but perhaps stronger for the honesty it now contained. There would be missteps ahead, old patterns reasserting themselves in moments of inattention, but the foundation had been rebuilt with greater awareness on both sides. Later, as they said goodnight at Lisa's door, Natalie paused with uncharacteristic hesitation. For what it's worth, she said quietly, I've never had a friend who cared enough to call me on my bullshit before. It's refreshing. Lisa smiled, recognizing the compliment in its raw authenticity. That's what real friends do, I think. They stood at the threshold for a moment longer, their friendship altered, yet enduring. As Natalie headed toward the elevator and Lisa closed her apartment door, both women felt a curious mixture of exhaustion and renewal, the emotional aftermath of transformation. The weeks that followed brought gradual but meaningful changes to their relationship. Natalie began checking in before making plans, offering options at different price points, rather than assuming Lisa could adapt to her preferences. Lisa, in turn, became more forthright about her limitations without apology or resentment, no longer feeling the need to invent excuses when financial constraints shaped her decisions. 1 month after declining the publishing house position, Lisa received an unexpected email from Professor Eleanor Martinez. The English department had secured funding for an additional research assistant position focused on contemporary American literature, Lisa's specialty. The stipend wasn't as generous as what Henderson Publishing had offered, but it came with tuition remission for her final year and valuable academic experience directly relevant to her career goals. I thought of you immediately, Eleanor explained, when Lisa stopped by her office to express interest. The work aligns perfectly with your dissertation focus, and frankly, you're the most qualified candidate in the department. Lisa accepted the position with genuine enthusiasm, recognizing the opportunity as one earned through her own merit rather than connection. When she shared the news with Natalie over coffee that weekend, her friend's response surprised her. That's amazing, and honestly probably better for you than Mom's offer anyway, Natalie acknowledged. I was pushing the publishing thing because it's what I know, but this is more aligned with what you actually want to do. The comment reflected a new awareness that Lisa appreciated more than any expensive gift or grand gesture, the recognition of her distinct path and priorities. Summer arrived with warming temperatures and lengthening days. Lisa settled into her research position, finding unexpected satisfaction in work that challenged her intellectually while accommodating her academic schedule. Natalie received a promotion at her marketing firm, bringing new responsibilities that occasionally limited their time together, but gave her a sense of professional accomplishment separate from her family's influence. In July, Lisa's birthday approached once again, the anniversary of the bill that had catalyzed their friendship's evolution. This time, planning began with an explicit conversation. What do you actually want to do for your birthday? Natalie asked over lunch in a modestly priced cafe they'd both come to enjoy. And please be specific. No, nothing fancy vagaries that I can misinterpret. Lisa laughed, appreciating the self-awareness in the request. Honestly, I'd love a small dinner with just a few close friends, maybe at that new gastropub near campus. Reasonable prices, good atmosphere, no need for anyone to play host. Natalie nodded, making notes in her phone. Guest list? You, obviously. Derek, from the library. Eleanor, if she's free. Maybe Kyle from your office. He was fun at brunch that time. Perfect, Natalie confirmed. And just to be completely clear, everyone pays for their own food and drinks. Birthday girl accepted. I'll cover your dinner as my gift. No surprise bills afterward. The teasing reference to last year's debacle made them both smile. The memory, now transformed into something they could joke about rather than a source of tension. Sounds perfect, Lisa agreed. Simple, straightforward, and exactly what I want. The birthday celebration unfolded exactly as planned. A relaxed evening with genuine friends, laughter that required no alcohol to flow freely, conversation that ranged from academic politics to dating disasters to dreams for the future. At 26, Lisa found herself surrounded by people who knew and valued her for exactly who she was, without pretense or performance. As they walked home afterward, Natalie linked her arm through Lisa's in a gesture of casual affection. Happy birthday, she said simply. Was it okay? What you wanted? Lisa considered the question with the same honesty that now characterized their friendship. It was perfect, she replied, meaning it completely. Not because it was fancy or impressive, but because it was real. Because everyone there understood each other. Including us, Natalie added softly. Finally. They paused at the corner where their paths would diverge. Natalie toward her downtown apartment, Lisa toward her modest graduate housing complex. The physical distance between their homes remained as vast as ever, a concrete manifestation of their different circumstances. Yet something had shifted in how they navigated that distance. In the bridges they had learned to build across the divide. I'm glad that birthday bill happened, Natalie admitted suddenly. As awkward as it was at the time, it forced us to have conversations we'd been avoiding for years. Lisa nodded, understanding exactly what her friend meant. Sometimes the most uncomfortable moments lead to the most important growth. I probably would have kept accommodating indefinitely if that hadn't happened. And I would have kept assuming my way of doing things was the only way, Natalie acknowledged. Or worse, the better way. They hugged goodbye at the corner, their embrace holding the warmth of genuine understanding. Not perfect, not complete, but authentic in a way their previous friendship had never quite achieved. As Lisa continued alone toward her apartment, she reflected on the journey of the past year. The birthday bill that had once seemed like such a betrayal had ultimately been a gift of surprising value. It had forced a necessary reckoning, bringing to light assumptions and expectations that might otherwise have quietly eroded their friendship beyond repair. The cost of honesty had been high, temporary discomfort, permanent changes to their dynamic, the sacrifice of a valuable job opportunity. Yet the rewards proved greater. A friendship built on mutual respect rather than convenience or history alone. A relationship that acknowledged their differences instead of pretending they didn't exist. Lisa climbed the stairs to her apartment, the same modest space she'd occupied when this story began. Her financial circumstances hadn't dramatically improved. She still budgeted carefully and made thoughtful choices about where to spend and where to save. Natalie still lived in luxury by comparison, still occasionally suggested outings beyond Lisa's means without thinking. The difference wasn't in their external circumstances, but in how they navigated them together, with intentionality rather than assumption, with communication rather than resentment. They had discovered that true equality in friendship didn't require identical resources or experiences, merely the willingness to see each other clearly and adjust accordingly. Inside her apartment, Lisa found a small package leaning against her door, a book-shaped gift wrapped in simple brown paper. The attached card read, "For your collection, no strings, no expectations, just because I saw it and thought of you. Happy birthday again. Love, N." Inside was a first edition of a poetry collection Lisa had mentioned admiring, not outrageously expensive, but thoughtfully selected, a gift that demonstrated attentiveness rather than extravagance. As she placed it carefully on her bookshelf, Lisa felt a profound contentment that had nothing to do with material possessions and everything to do with being truly seen. The $93 bill that had once threatened their friendship had ultimately strengthened it, creating space for something more genuine to grow in the place of comfortable but unexamined patterns. Some lessons came with unexpected price tags, Lisa reflected, as she prepared for bed. But the most valuable ones, those that transformed relationships and expanded understanding, were ultimately worth every penny. Congratulations! Type 9 in the comments so that I know you stayed until the end with me. Thank you for watching, and until tomorrow's story on this same channel.